All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by another live episode of Real Estate Titans, sponsored by Lionwell Media. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling throughout the marketplace, interviewing the top professionals in our field, essentially gathering insight, inspiration. It really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I'd like to consider a real estate titan. Now, our very special guest and feature titan for episode 294 from beautiful Washington, D.C., none other than Brandon Green. Brandon, it's an honor and a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for taking the time today.
Great. Thanks for being here. 294. Nice job. That's a great number. I love it.
Oh my gosh, it's your number, my friend. That is a
That's
it's a
my number. I'm
special.
taking it and living with it.
I love this. And Brandon, I mean it truly. I mean, a man of your caliber and professionalism and just the person that you are. I'm super excited to dive into this episode today with you and really just share you as a man, a professional, and everything that you bring to the real estate space. So let's just dive into that if you're all right.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we go into the first question, and for me, it's one of my favorites, and the
All
audience
right.
as well is the origin story. Really, just kind
Mhm.
of who is Brandon Green? What's your journey and path like through life? What got you into the business, and what brings you up until today? Kind of that whole backstory.
Okay, sure. Well, it starts actually in a small town in southwest Wyoming called Rock Springs.
Okay.
It is an unusual town in that it is where the majority of the people that live there work for the Trona mines. And so my guess is you may not know a lot about Trona. Maybe
I
you know.
don't. No, no, I don't. Please share.
Trona is used in a lot of things or is in a lot of things we use, like glass and baking soda. And anyway, it's a mining town, and that's where I was born. And my dad, and I give him a ton of credit for this, decided early on that he wanted to change the trajectory of his family and have it be different than anything he had experienced. So he was the first one to graduate from high school, and he went on to get his doctorate degree in philosophy.
Wow.
So that moved us, his pursuit of his doctorate, from Rock Springs, Wyoming to Des Moines, Iowa.
Okay.
So, kind of where it all starts for me is this relatively conservative Mormon background in Wyoming and in Iowa.
Wow.
I would say middle class for sure, right? With my dad's education in our family was a really big deal because he saw that as an opportunity to change his social economic status.
Unreal.
And so, it started there. And for me, the experience was one of feeling like I didn't belong, truthfully. Like I loved my family. I had a great experience with my family, but even at a young age, was like something, I don't know. I didn't see for myself what I saw around me. And that began to inform a variety of what I now see as entrepreneurial decisions that changed the course of my life.
Wow. Unbelievable. And even at a young age though, Brandon, I mean,
Yeah.
you're starting to formulate that perspective. And, I know that everybody has different milestones in a life and what they, base their life formula off of. But to
Yes.
me, I absolutely love that and the backstory.
Yeah.
So take us from take us from that spot. Let's keep going
Now we
down.
probably ought to keep going or we'll be here
Yeah,
forever.
let's do it. Let's do it.
So I graduated from high school and I knew I had a couple options. One was either to go on a Mormon mission
Okay.
or to go to college.
Got it.
And I didn't want to do either one of those things.
Interesting.
So I went to a musical performance of an organization called Up with People. It
Wow.
was an international touring group.
Okay.
It was at the Des Moines Civic Center. My mom took me because I was in performing arts in high school and she knew I would enjoy it.
Very
I was
cool.
like, that's what I want to do. I want to tour the world and sing and dance.
Wow.
And I told my parents that, and they were like, yeah, okay. So, how much is this at the time? The tuition to join that group was $15,000.
Wow.
And my parents said, look, we don't have 15K like to send you off on a international tour, but if you can raise it, you can go.
Wow. Okay.
So that was the next big milestone for me was figuring out how, as a senior in high school, junior, senior in high school,
Mhm.
to raise $15,000 so that I could do my passion around performing arts and tour the world.
Wow.
So A
Beautiful.
lot of chocolate Santa Clauses, a lot of Easter Bunny door to door, a lot of garage sales, and interestingly, ironically, a lot of realtors in that community
Oh,
sponsored my travel. I came up with like the early, like if you give me $100, I'll send you like two postcards. If you give me $500, so long story short, I raised the money and I went on an international tour for 2 years all around the world, singing and dancing and having a great time. So that
get
was a huge milestone.
get out of here, Brandon. And again, I want to unpack that just a little bit for the audience. It's
All
super
right, sure.
interesting. You know, at that age, I mean, junior, senior in high school, to raise that kind of money, I mean, that's a lot of money for a lot of people, let alone a high school kid, you know, and you look at it
Yeah.
from that standpoint, massive. But you being able to do that and figure out the ways, that's early signs into, you know, breadcrumbs to the success of the man that you are, which is really cool to hear and see. But
Yes, yes.
looking at it from the the artistry side and going
Yeah.
around the world for 2 years, I got to ask you, what are some of your favorite spots that you visited during that time in your
Yes.
life? Like what really stood
I Well, I had really never been out of Nebraska, Iowa, Wyoming, and maybe Utah,
out?
right? And I remember my first international landing point was Finland in the middle of the winter. And my host family, because we stayed in host families in all these different stays,
Okay.
after we sort of got comfortable in their home, they gathered us around and in broken Finnish to English language and a little dictionary that they had, they invited us down to the sauna.
Ooh, okay.
Now, if anybody listening has ever been in a Finnish sauna, you
Yeah.
might know where this is going.
Okay.
You might not. I don't know, right? So I turned to my roommate who was from Colorado at the time, and I was like, "So what do we wear to this like Finnish sauna?" And he's like, "I don't know, our swim shorts." So we put on our swim shorts, like right, and we get downstairs, and I'm all of 19, I guess, at this point, right? And we open the door to the sauna, and much to our shock, there's mom, dad, brother, sister in a very small sauna, completely naked.
No.
And we're standing there like, what the hell have we
Yeah.
got ourselves into? So that was
Gosh.
of my first introduction to culture shock
Yeah.
and understanding quickly that my view of the world
Mhm.
was my view of the world, but the world was a diverse and interesting place. And what might I discover these next couple of years? So that was a shocking and interesting experience.
But that's awesome, Brandon. I mean, and again, the reflection based off of that is huge. And not just at a young age, but anybody can take from this is we're
Yeah,
all developing in our worlds, in our ecosystems, in our environments. And to shelter ourselves in place, to me, is such a shame to really open ourselves up to what the world brings, people and perspective and art, architecture, cuisine, like all the different things.
yeah,
That way you really start to understand what this world and this place is all about. To me,
yes,
is fascinating. That's why I had to ask you, like, what are your
yeah.
takeaways? What's going on? And you
It was a
mentioned the
huge challenge.
sauna, which is so good. So that's a great story.
Yes, and we had a few hours. I'll tell you many more. But yes, it really informed my perspective early on that I loved people. I was curious about the world,
Okay.
and I wanted to learn more.
Wow.
And that, of course, curiosity served me very well in my career later on. But that spark initially of, wow, this is unexpected.
Mhm. Yeah.
What else is here
Wow.
was something that I really enjoyed.
So taking it from that standpoint, we fast forward the 2 years, incredible
Yep.
experience all over. What happened when you got back? What's
So
next?
I had a choice to make, which was, do I pursue performing arts professionally
Mhm.
or something else?
Okay.
And at the time, my calculation was success in performing arts seemed random
Hmm.
and arbitrary.
Okay.
And I wanted to do something that I felt like I could control the outcome to some degree, or that I could apply a certain set of skills or habits over time and have a more predictable set of success.
Okay.
And I also felt I wanted to make more money than I could see performing arts people make. So
Love it.
I, at that time, chose no to performing arts, not knowing what I was going to say yes to.
Hmm.
And but I did say no, I'm not going to pursue that full time. And it is that choice that I always wonder, right, Greg?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
what if I had?
Yeah.
I still sing today, actually.
Oh,
On a weekly basis, I have a voice lesson, so I've kept that alive in my life. But
beautiful.
obviously, decided to choose to professionally pursue something other than performing arts. So that was the next big inflection point, which pushed me to the Washington D.C. area
Okay.
to go to college on the East Coast, and I quickly realized like I wasn't college material.
Sure.
I wasn't interested in it, so I got a job at a staffing agency
Okay.
cold calling companies
Wow.
to have them use our services and relatively early realized that my people skills that I developed in up with people, my listening, my compassion, and my empathy was actually really good in this thing called sales. And my if I could apply those skills with like my personal ambition to make money and succeed, then I could do stuff other people seemingly were not willing to or able to do.
Okay.
And that started to really work well for me. So by now I'm in the DC area, and this is the early 2000s.
Got it. Okay, so I want to look at it from you already kind of answered the question as I was going through, but I want everybody to hear this deeply. There's the inflection points or the forks in the road of life, and to making a decision to say to, stop the passion career-wise that you were going down and make a shift and a change. That's a very specific decision, and everybody arrives at those conclusions differently. And I don't feel that there's a right or a wrong answer. I mean, a lot of people will say, well, what if, and oh, these things. But to go down that road too, Brandon, like you wouldn't be the man you are today if you didn't do these things and make these decisions. So as much as it's like, well, what if? It's like, well, no, think of all the people that you've impacted and lives you change and things you touch. So for anybody that's out there listening to the story and they had their own fork in the road, just know that
Yes,
you're in the place that you need to be, and that's okay. For me, I think that that's a very powerful message into it, Brandon. So,
yes. And I think it also helped me understand early on that life is about choices. And there are too many wonderful things to do in life to do them all. And if you do attempt to do them all, you won't do any of them at a high level. And I really felt that excellence was a grounding um, sort of ethos of mine. And to be excellent at something required me to make a more narrow choice.
mm,
And by my nature as an entrepreneur, I do not like narrow choices. I like expansive choices. But I also have realized that discipline and great success does require a narrowing.
mm,
And I've also learned that I can line up sequentially a lot of narrowly focused things in my life to cumulatively over time be involved in a more expansive set.
wow, love it.
So that early on, like, okay, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do that, definitely was the right choice, but it also started to inform a key success discipline around narrowly focusing in order to get something at a really high level.
Wow. And so distilling down the further part of the story, sales and the passion
Yes.
and your nature to it. So take us through that phase. So now
Yes.
you're in you got the sales bug, if you will. You're in that. You
Yeah.
realize how exciting that is. So what does it look like from there, Brandon?
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, this is fun. I can actually sort of draw a linear line from my activities to my income in a sales operation. So the more I sell, the more I make. Like that's kind of cool, right? And the more activity I put in, the more so I really loved that. I also, at the time in the staffing business, didn't feel a lot of passion per se about the staffing business.
Got it.
So I was watching an infomercial late one night and the Carlton Sheets, how to like buy real estate, no money down
Yeah.
infomercial popped up, right? Which I think is still an infomercial, like all the
Awesome.
time. And I was like, interesting. I could apply these skills over here. And I think probably real estate is more interesting than staffing. Maybe, I don't know, right? It was so I did it. I
Mm,
bought the course, I studied it, and I bought my first piece of real estate on Capitol Hill for no money down, did an FHA 203K loan, and I learned another important lesson in life,
mm,
which was inspiration is a fleeting feeling.
Mm.
And if you take action on inspiration before it dissipates, really amazing things can happen.
Mhm.
And I was inspired that night to push myself in a new direction. And I took action and it led to a new direction.
Wow.
And I'm very grateful for that. So, buying that property on Capitol Hill, renovating it, selling it, and I made like $40,000, which
Wow.
was an enormous amount of money for me at
Yeah.
that time. And I thought, wow, I think I really landed on something. I felt intrinsically connected to the industry, to the product. I love houses. It was like people were in there. I love people. I was like, wow, interesting industry, houses, people. This could be a thing for me. And so I ended up getting licensed and starting as a real estate agent and investor in those first early years.
Wow. Okay. So, and does this bring us to, I guess, 2001? Is that kind of where we're
Yeah.
at right there?
2001, 2002 was the those first couple of years as a licensee now
Mhm.
selling real estate, which was interesting because I didn't know anybody in DC. So I just was like, well, where are all the people that need to sell? They're probably in their houses. So
Yeah.
let me just like go knock on doors until somebody is interested in talking to me about selling their house. And so I use some of the same principles I learned in the previous environment, which was if you do 100 cold calls, then you're going to get five people, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, that probably applies over here.
Wow.
So how many doors do I need to knock on before somebody says yes? And how many yeses do I need before somebody signs a listing agreement? And how many listing agreements do I need before somebody actually sells their house? What is the math around that? And how do I reverse engineer good income for myself?
Wow.
So that was my early thinking in real estate, which sent me out the door and launched really quickly. It was like the rookie of the year and did quite well those first few years.
No, no, Brandon, and there's so many people that are tuning into this that are gonna, bring themselves back to early days, which I love that about the storytelling and the aspect there. But everybody has a slightly different variation to kind of get to the peak of the pinnacle and really make big impacts. So, what was it about your journey? I mean, did you align yourself with certain individuals? Did you have mentorship opportunities? Were you solo? Were you involved in team orientation? That kind of prior before the popularity of the team orientation? Like, take us through
Yeah.
how you got there.
So my path was solo with great mentors.
Okay.
So I started not on a team, but by myself.
Mhm.
And I felt that if it was going to be, it was up to me.
Mm,
That while great advice was coming my way, like at the end of the day, nobody was going to knock on the door but me.
mhm.
And I don't have like a trust fund to lay, like there was no, I remember I didn't go to college. I didn't actually have any of that, nothing else. I was like, well, I got to make this work.
Yeah.
Right. So that sort of fear really was a big motivator in those early days. And it also really started to hone in on my entrepreneurial skills
Mhm.
where I could see now more than ever that I definitely was an entrepreneur because I do like to go out on the edge and push the boundaries and do something other people may not be willing to do because I could see that opportunity.
Sure.
At that time in my career, the opportunity was for myself, right? Which was how do I build a great income in a world-class city
Mm.
and begin to execute on the vision that I had as a young boy of what my life could someday look like.
Sure.
So as the income started to go up and I started to buy more real estate, I was like, oh, this is the path
Mm.
that as a young kid in Wyoming and Iowa, I was like, I want more for myself. Like that, I think this could be the more, at least
Yeah.
professionally.
Yeah.
And that was really what was driving me in those early years.
Wow. I mean, to me, absolutely incredible. And again, I love to time machine these conversations because it's just so wonderful. I think so many of us, especially high drivers, people that are doing things at a very elite level, they don't take a lot of time to really reflect back because they're so focused on now and forward. And so it is a cool exercise that I like to do in this episode of Titans here and the podcast. But let's go down the road too, Brandon. So. Um, Talk about the next steps and evolution of your career path. And again, I know that you are massive into wealth building and understanding
Yeah.
investments and really looking at it to scale and grow. We were talking a little bit in the green room, as they say, before we started recording that you got out of the business as far as a performing realtor. So I want to talk about that. Let's
Yeah.
get into that piece.
Well, I had a couple big failures that really informed that next chapter.
Okay.
One was I clearly was good at sales and I was good at making money, but I didn't realize really at that time that I wasn't any good at saving or investing money, and I got way into tax debt.
Interesting.
So I had this experience where professionally, like I've got the gold platinum medallion, I'm going across the stage, right? But the truth is, I was like a $500,000 behind on my
Oh
taxes.
no.
And so I had this enormous weight and opportunity at the same time.
Okay.
Meanwhile, my personal life was going well. I met my husband, my soon-to-be husband, Christian,
I love
who
it.
I hired to be my first assistant.
Oh, hey, there we
A
go.
whole nother, yeah. So things were really starting to go well for me on the personal side,
Okay.
but I didn't have my financial world together at all. So I went through a lot of big, painful experiences. This was also the 2008 market crash as I moved into selling foreclosures
Okay.
for a large national bank. I did that and I ended up losing that account. So I had a lot of real painful experiences that taught me
Oh,
that there that if I was going to go beyond where I was, there was something other than sales that had to kick in.
wow.
And I had a great mentor at the time who said, "Look, I appreciate your big goals and they're really inspiring. But the truth is, your big production goals, your big income goals do not match your financial acumen. And
Mm.
so until you figure out how to net what your net is today, what
Mhm.
your net worth is, how to manage that, you will never reach your goals." And I was like, "Oh, that don't tell me I'm never going to reach my goals." Like that's but I saw he was right that I needed to click in another set of skills around, at this point, business management.
Sure.
And it was time for me to expand my group, build a bit of a team, and learn what it meant to be not just a salesperson, but also a businessman, and how there were things that were compatible between sales and business,
Mhm.
and there were things that were incompatible.
Sure.
And delineating that out so that I could really understand how to move to the next stage in my career.
Mm. But as you're mentioning that though, Brandon, I mean, there's so many top tier professionals that have felt that pain, and again, not just with looking at growth and development for an income, but not understanding taxes and not
Yes.
understanding what should or could be done. I mean, the financial literacy is a skill, and to understand that it doesn't, you don't just wake up and poof, oh, I know all these things, I can set it up, it's good. You need to have people around you that have been there, done that, bought the t-shirt to really foreshadow or be a sounding board to the right things to do, maybe some of the things to avoid. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's beautiful that you've experienced some of this pain. And it's not that you would want people to go through these things and to have these terrible, instances to go through and experience, but coming out of that from the perspective you can share and give and guide, not
Yeah.
just for yourself, but others. And I know you do that. So let's talk about that mentor taking the advice, building the thing out as you mentioned, and now what are the next steps? So like where do you go from there in that time of your life?
Well, so it was a ton of pain and also a ton of missed opportunity. And that helped me realize I just had to get my shit together,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Like I had to bring in different mentors. And over time I figured it out.
Okay.
And then, I was like, okay, this is what it means to be a business person. My world continued to grow.
Mm.
And then I hit another wall. And it was really about people.
Huh.
And, I had a mentality that I could just sell another house and I could sort of make it work,
Right.
right? I'll just sell another house.
Mhm.
We'll figure this out. But there comes a point at some scale in your business world. And for me, at that point, I was now in the brokerage business. I had several real estate offices and a title joint venture and other things. And I started to see that the limitation to further growth was simply who was in my life and working in my organization.
Wow.
And I had to begin turning my entire focus to building teams of highly capable people.
Mm.
And leading and managing highly capable people is an entirely different skill set.
Wow. Absolutely.
And and for anybody who's listening and has people in their life, they know like people can be a bit of a pain in the ass, to be
Yeah,
honest with you. But they're also like a really amazing. So
for sure.
I was like, oh shoot, I've got to figure out what it means to be quote unquote a leader.
Mm.
What is that? And what do I want to do that? And how does that all work? So that, Greg, was really the impetus for me also beginning to map out how I might eventually exit the business. If I got a certain caliber and quantity and quality of people
Mm,
in the organization, does that mean I could then transact that organization
mm.
and move into an entirely different space?
Okay.
So, this is now 15 years in,
Yeah.
right? And when I started to really put together the journey of salesperson, business person, leadership, executive leadership, and quantify the differences in those three levels of progression and work on myself. Like a great mentor said early on, he's like, your business will only grow to the extent you do.
Oh, powerful.
And
Mm,
super powerful. But what does that mean, right? Like that easy to say, but I needed more like je ne sais quoi. Like, what is that? It's like, oh, what he was saying was if I'm going to grow an organization that is transactable or sellable or big enough, then there is a certain type of person that needs to come into that organization, but they're only going to be attracted to me and
mhm,
my organization if it is at a certain vibe.
mhm.
If I'm able to articulate a vision so that they could see themselves in a broader construct. And all of that is a skill that took a good long time to figure out.
Okay. Okay. And again, I know that there's so many professionals that are either they've been there or they're thinking about it or they're currently in it. So this is hitting from a lot of different angles, Brandon, which is beautiful. And I, can you take us back through what you were thinking at the time? Like some of your emotional constructs into that, like, oh man, like do I want to go down this road? Is this right? Like what made you come to those conclusions and eventually exit?
So on the leadership side and the potential exit side, by then I had a mixed set of emotions. On one hand, by then I was honestly getting tired and burned out,
Okay.
right? We had
Yep.
1,000 brokers. We had,
Mm.
you know, 7 offices, I think, right? We had like I was running around all over. So I was kind of burned out and ready for a bit of a change personally, or a little bit of a break or a sabbatical or something. So that was very much in the mix. And I also was looking at the brokerage as a business model at
Okay.
that time. This was 2017, 18.
Okay.
And I was beginning to question the viability of that business model overall
Okay.
and asking myself, do I want to invest another 10 years in this model, which was quickly shrinking margins? It felt to me like a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
There's this constant tension between agents and brokers and value and cost.
Hmm.
Technology was starting to zip in from the right hand and left hand side. And I was like, okay, there's a lot of great things this industry could do, but for me, is the brokerage model the manifestation of the next chapter of my life? And I began to say, I don't think it is. And
Mm.
when I started to say, I don't think it is, it started to then set another set of questions up, which is, well, what do I do with the thing that I have?
Okay.
And and what might I do next? And I started to think through that. So Greg, it was really two forces, right? It was sort of my personal ready for a change burnout, but it
Hmm.
was also sort of the macros that I was able to analyze and say, I'm not so sure
Okay.
about the future of this model financially and otherwise. How is this going to play out? And do I want to be involved or not?
Mm.
And, what does that mean?
But to me, though, Brandon, it's showcasing a part of your characteristics of being brutally honest with yourself and being humble and transparent enough to understand what you're feeling and what you're going through personally and professionally. And I think there's so many professionals that are out there that get kind of stuck in a lane
Yeah,
and they feel like that's it. Like this
that's
is the
it.
thing, and there's no other thing. So they just continue. And that's, to me, that is a limiting belief. And for you to have the courage to look at that and take action upon it is incredible. And again, it's just showing like, hey, and this is no disrespect to Brandon here, but if Brandon did it, there's nothing stopping from any of us to be doing those things too, if we feel the burning need and desire to do it, right? I
Yes.
mean,
I feel like I have always in my life been very present to my um to aligning my orientation with who I am and where I want to go.
wow.
And and that came from having to really question that as a kid
Mhm.
growing up in an environment where being gay was really a big challenge, right?
Sure.
So early on forced some self-awareness. It really has helped later on. But
Wow.
when it came to looking at the brokerage and eventually exiting in 2019, it was a very risky move. I now
Hmm.
see because frankly, things were going great. We were at the top of the top.
Hmm.
There was nobody knew me as anything other than the real estate brokerage guy and real estate or whatever. And I didn't have anything next set up. I had no other opportunity, and so I just like exited.
Wow.
Now that wasn't abrupt. It took 2 years of planning, but
Right.
looking back on it now, it was highly risky
Mm-hmm.
looking at it from the outside, but made total sense if you were looking at it from the inside, as it opened up a period of 2 years where I was able to reset and recreate, which now has led to the company that I founded and now lead.
Oh, Brandon, and there's so much there that you just let everybody in on. But being an entrepreneur and you being a serial entrepreneur, as is stated into that, it takes a level of faith and courage, to be able to put yourself out on a ledge and know or not know what's going to come from this. And taking a step back and saying, man, the amount of risk that's there. I mean, you as an entrepreneur and everybody who's tuning in, they know that risk tolerance has to be a part of it. I mean, there's a reason why entrepreneurs are the way that they are, and there's a reason why everybody else is the way that they are. And like this is not designed for everybody, but it's a personal decision, and it's something that you have to live with one way or the other. The calculation and the planning ahead of time to me is everything. And it's not encouraging people, oh, just take risks and don't think about it, just do. I'm a planner. I like to think about these things and analyze and detail out before you make a move. But eventually, at some point, there's never the perfect time. There's never the right time per se, but you just got to take action and believe in yourself in some form. And you've obviously done that, continue to. So does that lead us to alchemy of money, Brandon?
It
Is that
does.
kind of okay?
Eventually it did. Yeah. I learned that the biggest risk is not being true to myself. So by putting the sort of the world organization of my career aside and saying, I'm going to be true to myself, I did leap into the white space, which
Wow.
is what I call sort of this undefined time.
Okay.
I had my acupuncturist at the time said, look, I was trying to figure out my next thing at that time, Greg. And she was like, look, there are very few times in life where you're suspended between this and that.
Mm.
We spend almost our entire life planted.
Hmm.
And if you're lucky, you get two, maybe three
Hmm.
occurrences where you're not committed and landed. She said, stay suspended and undefined as long as you possibly can.
Wow.
So I did. I wrote a book, which I haven't done anything with. So, I got to get back to that.
Mm.
I made some investments. I tried to change the zoning on a property that I own and failed miserably and spent $500,000.
Oh.
I did all kinds of stuff, but in that, I also started to resonate with the word alchemy and how
Mm.
alchemy, personally, this is long before the company, is both a formula to
Hmm.
success. It's both formulaic, but it's also a little bit mystical. And
Mm.
if you look at my career and my life, on one hand, you'd be like, "Wow, the guy's got lucky." He said, "Yeah, actually, it's been relatively formulaic, and there's been a lot to it."
Mhm.
So I was like, "I like the word alchemy.
Yeah.
I like helping people with their finances from my own personal journey.
Hmm.
Is there a company to do that?"
Mm.
So I started as sort of consulting, and I was like, "No, that's not enough." And I did like an online course, and we got to the end of the online course. I'm like, "Okay, guys, what do you think?" And they're like, "Really appreciate you teaching us all about finances, but we just want somebody to do it for us." And I
Wow.
was like, "Oh,
Mm.
right.
Mm.
That is the outcome.
There we go.
That's it." So that led to the formation of alchemy and the realization that what we would do for people, real estate professionals specifically and only,
Yes.
would be their books, their taxes, their payroll, okay, got it. So
Wow.
yeah, so I can see now that all the relationships and the knowledge I built in the 20-year career, that break that I took, the re-energizing of creativity and getting a new idea, enough space to figure out what would be a really good business because most ideas are actually not good businesses, and I had lots of them that were not.
Right.
But getting a little bit of traction and then saying, yeah, no, we landed on something
Mm.
has been a remarkable last few years.
Wow.
So that kind of brings us up to today, right?
Yeah.
So a lot in there. We could probably go in a lot of different directions if we had more time.
And again, I would love to kind of dive a little bit deeper into alchemy of money. And what I love about what you stated, though, it's through life experience and understanding and perspective and relationships and really living and breathing the thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, but this was built by entrepreneurs and real estate professionals for entrepreneurs and real estate professionals. And the fact that you took progression into it as well, right? Creating consulting, coursework, and now that, hey, the people have spoken. I need Brandon to this mind and this brain to do it for me. And we all know, look, anybody who's tuning into this, we know you're a licensed realtor or loan officer. We're in the world of, hey, I love this, but I want someone to do it for me. I don't want to figure this out. I'm bringing and aligning somebody who's better, smarter, faster, that has done this so that I can be my best self. So, Brandon,
Right.
let's talk a little bit more about your ideal clientele through alchemy of money and kind of the perspective into it because we cut in the green room we talked about a few different topics. I just want you to go wherever you want to go. Let's talk about the ideal client and what they're feeling, what they're facing, and how you guys are able to help. I mean, I really want to go down that way.
Well, I remember one of the nicest listings I sold in DuPont Circle at the time. I think it was a $3 or $4 million listing.
Hmm.
And I was so proud of that sale. And I get to the settlement table and I collect my commission. And I thought, gosh, what do I need to do? How much money do I need to make? What does my net worth need to be so I can buy properties like this?
Ooh. Hmm.
So I like to broker them. That's fun, right? I don't want to own them.
Mhm.
So, fast forward now to where we are with Alchemy, we really focus on helping agents better themselves financially so that
Hmm.
they have the capacity to do whatever it is they want to do in their world. Maybe that's buy a nice house, maybe it's something else, but I always find it a little bit unfortunate in our industry that we sell some amazing houses, but most of the agents who sell those houses cannot afford to buy them.
Well said.
Why? Right? Well, the why is because we don't focus a lot on the financial part of our business. We focus on GCI and volume and units and average sales price and Instagram video reels and like all the front end metrics,
Mhm.
but it's the back end metrics that mean something to us in our lives.
Wow.
It's the back end metrics, net profitability, net worth, that allow us to accomplish what we want to accomplish overall in our life.
Mm.
So Alchemy helps people orient that way.
Wow.
We happen to do bookkeeping and taxes on that path, but it is the shift in people's orientation to say, rather than measuring a win
Mm.
around how many gold, platinum medallions you have at the end of the year during the award ceremony, let's measure the win on your net profit and net worth.
Mm.
To do that, we've got to get a profit and loss statement in place. You got to learn how to read it and understand it and pay attention to it and put some time into it
Mm.
and improve it.
Yeah.
We got to get a balance sheet in place. So you know what the heck your debt and assets and equity looks like. We got to get a net worth statement in place. So if you got to be on top of your taxes because nobody builds wealth while simultaneously being behind on their taxes,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So on the front end, it's like, no, you're an accounting firm. Yeah, and we're helping agents be able to buy the houses they sell or whatever their equivalent is in their life.
Sure.
And that is very meaningful work. And especially the last few years where it's been, I don't know, kind of tough,
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
right? And so seeing people succeed at a high level, especially now,
Mm.
and being able to track what they're doing to cause success in today's market has been really rewarding.
But Brandon, as you're mentioning and detailing this out, I mean, this is truly for anybody. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're newer into the business or a seasoned pro. I mean, everybody needs to know these details if they're serious about taking their business to another spot to really grow, to scale predictably and consistently, and not just flying by the seat of the pants or whatever the market's doing up, down, or inside or out, the real estate roller coaster, right? So I think setting the foundation and having somebody who is able to guide and specifically dive deep into these aspects of your life and your business is crucial. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't have somebody who's aligned, that they have a financial person, wizard, a magician, if you will, in their life, and they don't love them, right? They make a huge difference. But the sad thing is that most real estate professionals, as you mentioned, don't treat this business like a business. They don't. They're great at sales, they're great at relationships. All the rest of it on the back end falls apart. And
Yeah.
so, whatever you're doing with that, whether it's aligning with somebody like Brandon and alchemy and money or not, it's fundamentals. This is not a sales pitch here. This is just the truth of the matter. And you've lived it, breathed it.
Yeah, and for some people things have gotten out of hand. Other people, it's just about missing the opportunities. So I spoke to a now member the other day. He's got like almost 2 million in GCI, doing well, right? Um, and paying the very most possible in taxes.
Ah, yikes.
I was like, oh, hey, I mean, Uncle Sam thanks you for your maximum contribution, but maybe you would want to do something else with that money. I don't
Hmm.
know. He's like, yeah, I definitely do. I was like, well, probably. I thought you might. Like, so let's talk about how we can reduce that based on the tax laws that are very advantageous to asset owners. Like the government incentivizes us to do better than that if you wish. And he's like, I wish. So let's roll that down the road. So some people are doing quite well. They're just not doing well enough for themselves or as well as they could.
Sure.
Other people have gotten themselves into a real pickle, right? And in either one, we're really excited to work with.
Hmm. I love that, Brandon. And again, just kind of diving into this, perspective. And I know you and I could talk about this all day long. I would just, anybody who's interested in learning more about what you provide and what you do and the team, what's the best place for anybody to get a hold of you to learn more, to connect, especially with Alchemy of Money?
Just go to our website. We've got a lot of great content on the website. A bunch of it's free. You can book a call directly with us through that website, learn how we can save you a lot of money in taxes or go through whatever situation you're in. But if you go to alchemyofmoney.co, alchemyofmoney.co is our website. And that's where you can find all the goods around how to make whatever's going on for you a little bit better.
Oh, this is awesome. And we'll have that in the show notes too, Brandon. And again, anybody who's out there, I encourage you to check that out. Also follow this man on social media platforms because his content, I was nerding out on it before we jumped in here. Awesome stuff. It's just super, poignant and directive and tactical. It's great stuff. So again, I'll put
Thank you.
different links in the show notes down below. Brandon, before we wrap this up, because I know we're getting close to time here. I know you got another meeting you got to jump on. So this is the tactical takeaway. And I know you dropped so many beautiful pieces of advice and information along the way through your life journey and through business. But anybody who's out there right now tuning into this now or after the fact, uh, a piece of advice that you might give, either personally or professionally, that helped movement, growth in the needle in a positive to life or to business perspective, what would you give? What advice would you leave everybody with before we wrap this up?
So success and failure are really the two sides of the same coin. And I think it's helpful in life to map and track what's caused you to be successful and realize that whatever those things are probably the very same things that are holding you back from going to the next level. So I'll give you an example for me. So I remember in those early days, one of the things that made me very successful was being very impatient, very impatient. Like, let's do this now. Come on, here we go. Let's close the deal, right?
Yep.
And that grew a lot of stuff. But as my world got bigger, I realized that success was more about me being patient
Hmm.
and slowing down instead of speeding up because I was now dealing with a lot of people,
Wow.
right? So if you want to go fast, you're going to go by yourself. And for the first portion of my career, it was mostly me going fast,
Okay.
but I wanted more and I had to slow down and be more present. So for me, impatience was a success vector that became a failure vector that
Wow.
I had to shift to the other side and say, oh, okay, well, I can't, just show up every day impatient with all the people. Like,
Mhm.
people don't last very long if you show up like that every day. Right.
Right.
So that's what I would leave with people, is to think about themselves and what is making them a success today, and how that very thing may actually also be holding them back from the next chapter. And what do you want to do about that?
Mm.
Right. Maybe you don't want to do anything about that.
Sure.
That's fine too. But it sure is kind of nice as a self-reflection exercise to identify it and then think through it, talk to a mentor about it or a coach about it, and maybe not shift it.
Mm. I think again, that massive advice, and that continues throughout your life and your journey, Brandon, that you shared with all of us today. I mean, it's incredible to look at that, and to me, it's the honesty and the self-reflection, really just honing in on those details, but paying close attention and tracking and making decisions based off of what you're seeing. And to anybody out there who has a hard time with self-reflection, what I would implore is to reach out to others that are okay with doing that and shedding some advice, people that have been further into the life and the career path that you could see yourself and envision pieces of, like somebody like Brandon who's sharing all this knowledge, and to say, hey, reach out to people like this because one, they've seen it, they've done it, and they're able to shed light and perspective that maybe you just don't see. And to me, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this, Brandon, because I know there's a million other things that you could be doing and other people that you could be affecting. I'm just so honored that you decided to jump on with our crew
My pleasure,
here
Craig.
with Real Estate Titans. It was incredible, my friend.
Thank you. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
It was great, and again, I know everybody out there is gonna soak this up and take it. And I would tell you, please follow this man, jump into the links, really understand what's going on. If anything sticks out to you, all the information is going to be in the show notes below. Hey, Brandon, again, thank you, audience, everybody out there who's tuning in, and the Titan Nation. Thank you as always for your time and attention, your love and support. If you like what we're doing with Real Estate Titans, don't forget to like and subscribe. I have to say it anyways every time, just as a gentle reminder. That's how we're able to continue to create this content for you guys. I mean, it means the world. I do have to give our sponsor a quick shout out, Lionbolt Media. If you are a real estate professional looking to grow and scale your business with leading edge digital marketing, visit lionboltmedia.com for more information. We're live here every Tuesday afternoon, a different Titan, a different location. Catch everybody in the next live episode of Real Estate Titans. Take care. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.